I hadn't expected to see her alone. The house was quiet in the kind of way that makes every breath feel too loud, every movement noticed. She stood by the open window, arms folded loosely, her hair gently moving with the breeze like it had been waiting for someone to look at it long enough to remember it was alive. When she turned, she didn't smile right away. She just held my gaze, steady, assessing, as if the air between us had already decided something before either of us spoke. "Your friends won't be back for a while," she said softly. Nothing in her tone was suggestive. But nothing was casual either. I nodded, unsure if I should sit or stay standing. I could feel the weight of my own hands, suddenly aware of where every part of me was. She gestured to the armchair across from her, though she didn't take a seat herself. The room smelled faintly of vanilla and something warm, her perfume maybe, or just the scent of skin warmed by sunlight. Her presence wasn't loud, it was the opposite. It was quiet, and impossible to ignore. "You're always so polite," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Most people your age don't listen this much." I tried to answer, but the words caught. I just like talking to you." A flicker passed through her expression. Not pride. Not surprise. Something gentler, and, if I wasn't imagining it, sad. "I like talking to you too," she said. But her eyes lowered to the floor, as though even admitting that was already crossing an invisible line. She finally sat down, smoothing the fabric of her dress without needing to. I sat opposite her, too aware of the space between us, and the fact that neither of us seemed comfortable filling it with small talk. Silence stretched. It should have felt awkward. It didn't. Instead, it hummed. Her hand brushed her neck, fingertips trailing in a thoughtful motion. I followed the movement without meaning to. She noticed. Her hand fell still in her lap. "You don't have to look at me like that," she said. "How am I looking at you?" She hesitated. "Like you're trying to memorize me." I didn't deny it. Her eyes met mine again. This time, she didn't look away. Outside, the sky began to shift toward evening. The soft gold of sunset stretched across her face, touching the corner of her eyes, where time had left the faintest trace. Not something that took away from her beauty, something that deepened it. I became aware that I was leaning forward. So was she. "I know what people would say," she murmured. "About my age. Your age. About what this could be." She didn't finish. The unspoken part hung between us like smoke. I swallowed. "Do you care what they say?" Her lips parted. She didn't answer at first, just studied me. Not like a woman evaluating a boy, but like someone remembering who she was before she stopped allowing herself to feel certain things. "I care," she said carefully. "But not right now." My pulse beat hard at the base of my throat. Her hand moved. Slowly. Deliberate. She reached across the space between us and rested her fingertips on the back of mine. The contact was feather-light, barely there. But it sent a quiet shock through me, as if my body had been waiting far longer than my mind had admitted. Her fingers lingered. A breath. Another. Then she withdrew, too soon, as if she realized she'd done something that couldn't be undone. "That didn't happen," she said. "It did." Her eyes searched my face, and for a moment she looked like someone standing at the edge of a decision she had already made, fighting the urge to admit it. Then, just as the silence deepened, a sound shattered it. The front door latch clicked. She drew in a breath, sharp and quiet. And without taking her eyes off me, she whispered, barely audible, "Don't say anything." The sound of the door unlocking scattered the tension across the room like startled birds. She stepped back first, crossing her arms with practiced calm, though a single misplaced breath betrayed her. I moved away too, but not far, just enough to pretend nothing had happened, though my pulse still drummed against my throat. It turned out to be a delivery at the wrong house. A brief exchange at the door, then silence again. She didn't turn to face me right away. She stood still, fingers pressed gently against the edge of the table, as though grounding herself. "That was close," I said quietly. She exhaled, but the laugh that followed was too soft and too hollow. You think I'm worried about someone walking in? That's not what this is. She didn't need to explain further. I understood. It was bigger than a door opening. It was the fact that the moment we both pretended didn't happen, did. And now we couldn't unknow it. When she finally turned back toward me, her face held something I hadn't seen before. Not fear. Something more dangerous. Resolve. I haven't done anything like this, she began, then stopped herself. Not in a very long time. She sat, but this time on the edge of the couch instead of the chair. I took the seat beside her, close enough that our shoulders nearly touched, far enough that it didn't count as contact. Her voice softened. After my divorce, her throat worked around the words. I stopped thinking about what I wanted. It was easier to not want anything. You don't seem like someone who needs anyone, I said. She looked at me then, really looked. That's the point, she said, a confession wrapped in irony. For a moment neither of us spoke. My eyes traced the faint line of a scar at her wrist, not noticeable unless you were close. Close enough to see the memories she kept hidden. I wondered who had hurt her, or if it was time itself that had done the slowest damage. I thought about saying something light. Something safe. Instead, my voice came out low, unsteady. You didn't seem lonely until I started paying attention. She hesitated. Her lips parted, then closed, then parted again, the motion unconscious, vulnerable. When she spoke, it was barely above a whisper. Maybe that's exactly why this scares me. She shifted slightly, and the side of her knee brushed mine. Not accidental. Not quite intentional either. The contact stayed, warm and grounding, as if either of us could decide whether to lean in or pull away. I'm not a fantasy, she murmured. If you keep looking at me like I am, you'll only see what you want to see, until you don't. I breathed in slow. Maybe I'm not looking for a fantasy. A long silence. She didn't look at me this time. But her hand moved, resting on the couch cushion between us. A quiet offering, not quite touching me, not quite retreating. I placed my hand down beside hers, our fingers inches apart. The air thickened with unspoken agreement. No words were needed. The closeness said enough. We sat that way, side by side, not touching, but connected in a way that already felt irreversible. And when she finally stood to leave the room, she paused, her hand brushing the back of my shoulder as she passed. A small touch. Too soft to be an accident. Too deliberate to ignore. By evening, the silence between us had changed. It no longer felt like hesitation, it felt like gravity. Every moment seemed to draw us closer, even when we tried to stay apart. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, the dim overhead light casting a soft gold on her shoulders. She didn't turn when she heard me. Didn't need to. She already knew it was me. I made tea, she said quietly. Her voice held no invitation, but her body did. The slight shift of her posture, the way her hand lingered too long on the countertop as if waiting for a reason not to step away. I stepped closer, close enough to smell the faint warmth of her perfume mixed with steam. She slid one cup toward me, but when I reached for it, her fingers brushed the inside of my wrist. It wasn't accidental. Her hand stayed there, a soft weight, her eyes still turned forward. Neither of us moved. The moment was broken by a sharp sound, her phone buzzing on the table behind us. She pulled her hand away, turning quickly. The name glowing on the screen made her pause. Her ex-husband. A tense silence formed. She didn't answer. She just let it ring, the sound cutting through the charged quiet. He only calls this late when he wants something, she murmured, but her voice was distant, as if she was speaking to herself, not me. He still thinks he gets to check on me. Make sure I'm alone. The last word seemed to echo. And are you? I asked. Her eyes finally lifted to mine. No, she said. The phone stopped. Silence rushed back in. She walked past me, the brush of her arm against mine sending a slow heat across my skin. She sat on the sofa, leaning forward, elbows on her knees, head in her hands. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be. Her voice faltered. Wanting something? I finished. She didn't answer. But her silence said enough. I sat beside her. Not too close. Close enough to feel her breath when she exhaled. The room felt small suddenly, the air dense with things either of us had said. Our shoulders brushed again. She didn't move away. There's a part of me that doesn't care, she whispered. That wants to stop pretending. But there's another part that still hears every voice that told me this is wrong. I turned slightly, and she mirrored the motion without realizing. Our knees touched fully this time. Skin to skin? Her breath caught. I don't hear them, I said. Her gaze lowered to my mouth. She didn't look up again. We leaned in, just enough to feel it. The quiet tremor of breath, the nearness, the pull. My hand moved to her arm gently. Her skin warmed beneath my fingers. Her eyes finally lifted, meeting mine in a moment suspended, unmoving, inevitable. Then, footsteps approached down the hallway. We froze. Her hand gripped mine suddenly, tight. Not in fear. In refusal to let go. The footsteps passed by. A door closed. We didn't speak. We didn't lean back. Her fingers loosened but did not release mine. And in that stillness, closer than we had ever been, we both realized there was no going back. It was late. Too late for me to still be there. Too late for either of us to pretend this was just another evening. She stood by the hallway light, one hand braced against the wall, as though she needed it to steady herself. Her breathing was quiet, but uneven, like someone trying to recover from a thought they didn't mean to have. I shouldn't have held your hand, she said. It wasn't an apology. It was an admission. I know, I replied softly. She turned then. Slowly. As if granting herself permission to face me. The dim light drew a soft sheen across her eyes. Vulnerability. Frustration. Longing. All of it flickered through, too raw to hide now. And I shouldn't have wanted you to. She hesitated. But I did. The air thinned. Every shadow in the corridor seemed to press closer, listening. She took a breath, stepped forward once. Then again. Until she was standing directly in front of me. We were barely an arm's length apart, but it felt like standing at the edge of something irreversible. I've spent so long keeping everything under control, she said. But you. Her voice broke, barely audible. When you look at me, I forget what I'm trying to protect. Her hand rose to run through her hair, but I caught it mid-motion, gently, fingers closing around her wrist. Not to stop her. To ground her. She didn't pull away. Her eyes fell to where our skin met, then lifted to mine. Slowly. I stepped closer. Not touching, but so near her breath brushed my lips when she spoke. Say something, she whispered. A plea disguised as a warning. I can't stop thinking about you, I said. The words came out low, unfiltered. I try not to. I try to act normal. But every time you look at me, every time you walk into the room, My voice caught when her other hand lifted, lightly brushing the side of my face. The touch was tender. Too tender. Her fingers traced down to my jaw. This can't happen, she murmured, but her thumb moved slowly, following the shape of my mouth. You understand that? I nodded. Yes. Her hand didn't move away. Neither did I. We stood still, breathing, watching, silently collapsing into whatever this was becoming. Then why? She whispered. Are we still standing like this? Because either of us wants to move, I answered. A sharp exhale left her, half a laugh, half something else entirely. Her forehead lowered toward mine, not touching, just hovering, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. Her breath trembled. I'm terrified of you, she whispered. Why? Because when I'm near you, she said, closing her eyes, I remember what it feels like to be alive. My hand slid gently to the back of her neck, fingers threading into her hair. She didn't stop me. Her body leaned into mine, soft, unguarded, as if the part of her that always said no had finally gone quiet. We were seconds from falling into whatever came next, gravity drawing us in. Then, her phone lit up again on the table behind us. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a name on the screen neither of us expected. She opened her eyes, breath held. "Why is he texting you?" I asked quietly. Her answer came in a soft, steady voice that changed everything. "He knows." The door down the hallway clicked shut again, faint and distant. Whoever had stirred was gone now. The house returned to silence, except silence no longer felt empty. It pulsed. She didn't step back this time. Neither did I. We stood facing each other in the darkened room, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, casting soft shadows that moved when we breathed. "You need to leave," she whispered. But her voice held no command. Only conflict. Her hands were at her sides, fingers flexing unconsciously, like she was fighting the urge to lift them toward me. "I will," I murmured. "If you really want me to." Her eyes closed for one long, aching second. "I don't know what I want," she breathed. My heartbeat surged. The air between us crackled with every unspoken word. Every moment we'd nearly crossed the line but pulled ourselves back in fear, not of being caught, but of what it would mean if we weren't. I took a slow step forward. She stayed still. Now our distance was no more than a breath. Her eyes opened, finding mine with a clarity that stripped everything else away: age, consequences, hesitation. All that remained was truth. "I won't pretend anymore," I said quietly. "Not when I feel you pulling closer every time you say we should stop." Her lips parted. Not in shock. In relief. "You don't understand," she whispered, voice trembling. "If this happens, I don't get to go back to being untouched by it. I don't get to forget it tomorrow. I will feel everything. All at once. Then feel it," I said. The words hovered between us, a single breath away from contact. She exhaled softly, a surrender disguised as breath. I lifted my hand slowly, giving her all the time in the world to move away. She didn't. My fingertips traced the air until they brushed the line of her jaw, the curve of her cheek. Her eyes fluttered closed, not to escape, but because the feeling was too much to hold with open eyes. Her hand reached up, covering mine. Warm. Certain. "This is wrong," she whispered, though her body leaned in, speaking the truth she was no longer strong enough to hide from. "It already happened," I replied softly. "It's been happening since the moment you looked at me and didn't look away." The smallest sound escaped her, a quiet, helpless exhale that carried the weight of every emotion she'd fought to bury. Our foreheads touched. Not a kiss. Not yet. But more intimate than one. Her hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers faintly trembling as they wove into my hair. She drew in a breath, and I felt it against my lips. "I was so afraid," she whispered, "that you were only curious. That you'd wake up one day and regret ever wanting me." "I won't," I said, voice breaking into truth. "I'll regret walking away from the only thing that's ever felt real." Time stopped. All the tension, all the restraint, all the fear, melted into this moment. Our breaths merged. Our lips brushed, just barely. And in that slightest touch, there was no more hesitation. Only certainty. Only us. For a moment neither of us moved. We stayed suspended in that fragile space where everything could still fall apart, or fall into place. She opened her eyes slowly. There was no more tension in them. No more hiding. Just softness. Quiet acceptance. Her hand was still at the back of my neck. I covered it gently with my own. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like," she murmured. "Then don't think about tomorrow," I replied. "Think about right now." A breath left her, slow, steady, like the release of something she'd been holding in for years. Her forehead rested against mine, and this time, it wasn't tentative. It was grounding. Claiming. Slowly, her other hand rose and settled against my chest. She closed her eyes again, as if listening to the heartbeat beneath her palm. "You're too young to understand what this could cost me," she whispered. "And you're too used to believing love is something you have to apologize for," I said quietly. Silence. Not the tense silence we once shared, but a soft one, full of warmth. Understanding. She stepped closer until there was no space left. I wrapped my arms around her, not as a question this time, but as an answer. She melted into the embrace, her body fitting into mine like it had finally found somewhere to rest. We stood like that for a long time, no words, no need for them. Her head against my shoulder, my cheek against her hair. The world outside still existed, with all its opinions and consequences. But here, in this quiet room, none of it mattered. She pulled back slightly, just enough to look at me. Her hand brushed my hair away from my forehead, the gesture tender in a way that felt more intimate than anything else we had shared. "I'm not going to pretend I'm not scared," she said. "You don't have to," I answered. "We'll be scared together." A small, genuine smile touched her lips, soft and unguarded. It lit her face more than any light could have. She reached down and took my hand. Not hiding. Not hesitating. Just holding. And I realized, this was our decision. Not a moment of impulse, not a stolen secret in the dark, but a choice. She leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead. It wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. "I don't want to keep this between us anymore," she whispered. "Not because I'm ashamed, but because I'm not." My chest tightened with something warm, fierce, unshakable. I squeezed her hand. "Then we won't." We sat together on the sofa, side by side, hands intertwined. No longer separated by silence or doubt. The night stretched softly around us, calm and still, as if the universe itself had finally exhaled in relief. Her head rested against my shoulder. My thumb traced slow circles over her hand. Not rushing. Not hiding. Just being. Together. And this time, there would be no going back.